Hello everybody, my name is Richard Zoltik and I'll be providing the video tutorials for this portion of the program. I've gone ahead and created a title block. You may be instructed to create a slightly different title block. Mine is 11 by 17 portrait. And I've also gone ahead and created the actual legend that we'll be using for this portion of the program. The symbols I'm using here are the ones that we use in our practice. Yours may differ slightly, so please verify with your instructor exactly which symbols they would like you to use. And if you need to use mine, you can. If not, you can use the ones that are being provided to you. In regards to the text information, a lot of this text I copied and pasted from existing text. Anything that was new I created with its own style. This particular one is 3/16 of an inch in size. And then for the text, to make sure that everything looks exactly the same, I created my first line of text or multi-line text, and then I copied it from a base point, the corner of the table, and then I pasted it into the corner of all the tables so they all line up very nicely. It looks very professional. Now these symbols are going to be used on the drawing in order to create an electrical layout. The symbols that are drawn here are going to be copy and pasted into the main drawing and then scaled to the appropriate scale for continuity with the scale of the layout. So I will, in this case, select Edit, copy with base point. I'll pick any base point, and then I'll put a window around all the different symbols here. Press Enter, and then I will access the model of the drawing and select Edit and Paste. And you'll notice that they're substantially smaller because, again, these were designed for 11 by 17. We have a page with a full layout of a bathroom area. I know from my experience with my practice that I need to increase the scale of all these items by a factor of 20. So I selected scale, picked all the items, press enter, and then typed in 20. And when it comes to some of the fixtures, I need to scale them up again another factor. So I'm going to move all of these into a similar location. And then scale these up by a factor of 2. And this is just necessary to make sure that they are proportionally correct according to the size of the drawing. Okay, I've got a bit of overlap here. I will move this fixture here so that it doesn't interfere with some of the other symbols. There we go. And then I'll move that all over away from the drawing. Now we're going to be using a technique called blocks. We're going to create blocks of each of these items, and what that allows us to do is create a library of symbols that we can use in multiple drawings. And then it also allows us to quickly paste and rotate the items in their correct direction. And that's critical for us to be very efficient with how we're going to insert these items. Okay, let's go through the first one here. I'm going to use the GFI receptacle, and I'm using basically the symbols that are created for your project and the language that's being used in your project for the purposes of this presentation. So we're going to turn this into a block. So you'll notice one of the options here is a block editor, and I'll click on Create. And it's asking me for a name. Now this is typically a short form of the name. I'll just call this GFI. And then it wants a description, and I'm going to type in GFI duplex receptacle, but we could be very precise on exactly what this is with more detail if we needed to. If we had multiple GFI receptacles, we would like to be able to identify them, receptacles. Sorry, my multitasking skills are limited. There we go. And if I had several different types or different descriptions, I may want to place them here so that the GFI would be GFI1, GFI2, and then the description would give you a clear picture of what exactly it is. So what do we want to do with this? The base point we want to specify on screen, and the object itself we want to also specify that on screen. But in order to do so, what I want to do is actually convert this item to a block. So I've given it a name, a description. It's now asking me to pick an insertion point. You can see specify an insertion point, and I want to pick the middle of this point here because that's where all my rotation is going to occur around. Now it's asking me to select my object, and I will pick this item. I can pick multiple items if I wanted to. Now that I've selected it, I'll press enter. And this item is a block. So what does that mean? Okay, when we're looking at the diagram here, we have two GFI receptacles on either side of this vanity. Now I can go into and insert those items. I may want to create a layer specifically for that. For instance, I can go in here and create an electrical symbols layer, and that's what I'll do right here. So electrical. And therefore all these symbols will appear on that layer. Let me close that down. When I created it originally, I could have been very specific to what layers I created that in, but that's where I'm going to place it. So now I'm going to insert it. So I'm going to select insert, and these are all the different items that I inserted previously from different manufacturers when I insert them into the diagram. I can also rename these so if I want to use them in the future, but there's my GFI. So now it is placed on my cursor, and notice where it is on my cursor, exactly where I selected the insertion point. So what other options do I have? Reading down below, I may increase the scale, change it, change the base point of it, but what I do want to do is rotate this because right now it's in the wrong orientation. So I'm going to click on rotate, and I know from AutoCAD and how it reads angles, I've got to tell it to rotate 90 degrees counterclockwise. Counterclockwise is positive, so I just type in 90, and notice how it's changed on my cursor. Awesome. Now I can actually insert it, and I'm going to hold down Shift, right mouse key, and this is the best time to use nearest because that allows me to pick anywhere along this wall. I know I've got a sconce here. This receptacle, it's indicated on the drawing, is somewhere out here, so I'll pick that. And I can just copy and paste that or go through the same process again. Enter the block name. I just press enter. It already has GFI. It appears on my cursor. I type in R for rotate, and I'm going to put in 90, and it's on my cursor once again. And now I can go to the next point, Shift right mouse key, nearest. I want it off the item there. There we go. I asked it to specify the scale this time on, and you can see what it's doing. It's actually allowing me to rescale this, but I don't want to change the scale factor, so 1 is the current value. I'll press enter, and there I have the symbol. So I'm just trying to show you that there's different ways of being able to use it. Now I'm going to place it in this location. I'll use this technique here. Like there's a couple different ways of being able to do that. So GFI, there we go. Now I know where that appears on my cursor. Okay, this time I want to rotate it 90 degrees clockwise. So the rotation of it will be -90. And I press enter, and now you can see it's once again rotated in the right direction. Shift right mouse key, nearest, and then place it approximately here. It looks like on the drawing. And then I press escape, and I'm out of that part of the drawing. So this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to turn each one of these into a block. Then we're going to insert it using that technique, and then we're going to add the line work to it. I've gone ahead and completed the drawing, inserting all the different electrical symbols that we have for this project. And now we have to identify how the switches are attached to all the different units here. So we have fans and suspended lights and pot lights and so on. So the easiest way to do this is to use splines. I'm still in the electrical layer. I'm going to click on the draw tool, and inside the draw tool itself you'll notice that there's two different types of spline tools. One's a bit more of a free-flowing spline. The other one I have a bit more control over. So I'm going to click the spline fit, and what we're trying to do is identify what switch affects which item. So in this particular case, this switch here will affect the fan that we have in that location. And I'm going to put a couple of different items here and then tie that into the fan and then press enter. So if I click on it, I have these nodes, and what these nodes allow me to do is if I needed to, I could reshape them so it's clear what switch is affecting what item that's on the wall. And here we have, like I said, the switch affecting the fan. I have the center light, and with light fixtures what we'd like to be able to do is bring that spline right into the center of the light. So sometimes what we'll do is go into the snap settings here, and in this particular case I have intersection and endpoint. I'm also going to select center, and then that way it makes this a bit easier. So once again, let's go into draw, and we'll use the fit spline, come off the end of this. Now it's finding endpoints and positions all over this drawing. So if you don't want to affect anything, you can just hold down Shift right mouse key and select none, and then that way it doesn't click on anything. So there's my line, and it's going to go right to the center of that fixture. Now it wants to continue doing so, so I just press enter and I will complete that. We're going to also change the line quality so it appears correctly in the drawing. So I can at any time select these lines and change the property of that. But we're going to be doing that at a slightly later state. So just continue on attaching all the switches to all the different elements that are on the drawing, and then we're going to insert that into the title block.